Hello everybody, welcome to the Wonky Angle, where I talk about electronic music, both new and old. And today I'm talking about the new album from Solar Fields, Ourdom. Solar Fields is the alias for Magnus Birgersson, an artist who used to be on the Ultimate Records label and was easily the most prolific artist on there for a while too. Though now, aside from a handful of releases still Ultimate exclusive, he's broken off from the label and gone independent, kinda like carbon-based lifeforms. His music was also my introduction to the label, eventually showing me other great artists in a similar vein like Is Asura, as I mentioned, carbon-based lifeforms, Hol Bauman, and countless others. He of course makes a special brand of ambient and down-tempo music that's super detailed and expansive, much like his label mates, though his style tends to be a bit more large-scale and epic compared to some of those guys. Well, Asura does that kind of thing too, but whatever. This guy was a pretty big part of my life during high school. He has 2 albums on my favorites of all time list, with Leaving Home and Movements. And I also considered his Blue Moon Station album for the list as well, but it missed the cut. This dude is super talented, all of his music is excellently well produced, so how about I go down his main studio album discography so far. Bit darker and spacier than the usual from him, but it's a very solid first outing, and I would definitely say it's worth people's time. This one. This is where the guy really started to establish his usual style, a mix of down-tempo, ambient, and trance music to stunning effect. It does admittedly stuff most of its best material in the first half, and kind of goes downhill a bit for me and really starts to run together after the track Infection 2687, but this is still a solid release all around. Okay, this album is his best in my opinion. Doubles down on the psychedelic sound of Blue Moon Station and spreads all of its quality equally throughout the album. Excellent stuff, definite must listen. This shows him moving into more straightforward psytrance, considered among the best the genre has to offer. I still tend to prefer his more down-tempo soundscape stuff, but this is still pretty great. Last one I have a CD of. I think if you're not already familiar with Solar Fields, this would be the best place to start. Huge, expansive soundscapes, epic melodies and sound design, just a super enjoyable and engaging release all around. This is the guy's single most low-key release. I suppose technically it is my least favorite mainline album of his, but it's still pretty nice ambient stuff, still worth checking out. Kind of the sequel to Earthshine, his second go at a straight trance album, and I think I like this one just a little better actually. Which kind of brings us to here. I'll be honest, I actually skipped several releases here. Like, this doesn't include his companion albums like Extended and Altered Second Movements, which are companions to Leaving Home and Movements respectively. They're like mostly remixes. Doesn't include his work with Ace Dana under the Huva Network name. Doesn't include the Origin 1 and 2 albums, which were compilations of unreleased material that didn't make his main albums. Doesn't include his Red, Green, Blue compilations, or either of his soundtracks for the 2 Mirror's Edge games. I still have not listened to the Mirror's Edge Catalyst soundtrack yet. Mainly because it looks way too overstuffed. Like, it's 5.5 hours. That's far too much for one release. But needless to say, the guy has no shortage of material to check out, even if I do personally just prefer listening to his regular albums. And his last regular mainline album, Random Friday, came out all the way back in 2012. It's been such a long time since we got a proper mainline album from the guy that he kinda fell off my radar. I didn't expect him to be coming out with another new album, but I just found his Twitter at one point. Suddenly he teased this new album here, Ourdom, and shortly after that, here it was. The first regular new Solar Fields album in 6 years. Sure, why not? Now, I was maybe a tiny bit hesitant towards this release because of my reaction to Carbon-Based Lifeform's Derelict's album last year, which wasn't anything new or special from them, even if it did live up to their usual standards. I didn't really know what to expect out of this latest release, but I've really enjoyed all of his other mainline albums. Guy was undoubtedly my most listened to artist on Ultimate, so I didn't have any other reasons to think this wouldn't be good as well. So what did we get with Ourdom? Well, I'll say this, Solar Fields definitely did not fall for the same trap as Derelict's. It does not sound quite like any of his other mainline albums so far. I mean, maybe Movements and Blue Moon Station have some elements in common, but the one thing that took me aback about the whole album was how happy it sounded. Lots of tracks in major keys, lots of acoustic textures like pianos and guitars and the like. It felt kind of like a new age album, sort of, in a lot of moments, and not the pretentious and boring kind, more like the marvel at the beauty of nature kind. Yes, there does exist new age music that is not pretentious and boring. In fact, 2 releases came to mind for me while listening to this, and this is 2 releases I guarantee no one watching this has ever heard of. This is going to be, like, the most obscure thing I'm ever going to reference on this channel. So, one release that came to mind was Scenic Listening by Kevin Wood, and the other is this thing right here. It's a CD called Energizing, which came with a package of Tilex Shower Cleaner. Both new age albums that are just kind of like relaxing music to brighten your day kind of stuff. I know it sounds like just the absolute bottom of the barrel for music in general, but I actually really do like both of these albums 100% unironically, and they were a part of my childhood and helped shape my music taste. I mean, they're clearly made using MIDI and synthesizers and the like, but the melodies and atmosphere were well executed, and they weren't really all that pretentious either. I mean, if your music comes packaged with freaking shower cleaner, you automatically cannot be pretentious. But yeah, they, alongside Andreas Wollenweider, who's admittedly far better, are the reason why I'm always going to be kinder to new age music than most people probably would be. Hell, Energizing for me was even pre-Orbital. I know this all sounds like the lamest shit in history, but I actually kind of recommend checking them out if you can possibly find them, which is going to be pretty difficult, especially in the case of Energizing, but hey, it is what it is. Point is, I never would have expected in a million years to be referencing Kevin Wood and Tilex Shower Cleaner, especially in a freaking Solar Fields review. This is kinda weird, but I do get a similar vibe out of Ourdom that I do out of those old new age releases, sort of. Very much about, like, the beauty of nature and the like, and created using mostly electronic methods with some acoustic textures here and there, but still delivering a very solid and enjoyable release. And while Ourdom certainly doesn't have any childhood connections for me, obviously, I would have to say the production here is a massive step up from either Kevin Wood or the Tilex people. Those old albums had a lot of, like, you know, warm synth choirs and pads and the like, piano, some very light synth textures. But this is Solar Fields, so of course we're going to go a lot more epic and dramatic. But this isn't just Solar Fields making a new age album that's like marveling at the beauty of nature. There's more to it than that. He's also bringing post-rock into the mix. And note I did not say post-rock elements, no. Straightforward post-rock. Like explosions in the sky, Godspeed You Black Emperor kind of stuff. Take the track Forgiveness, for instance. It's got actual guitars and acoustic drums. It's basically just a post-rock track with some electronic elements infused within. Also kind of reminds me of moments from the end of Future Loop Foundation's Memories from a Fading Room, another obscure album you need to check out. So yes, that does mean this album is Solar Fields meets New Age meets post-rock. It's a weird mix, I have to say, but I actually did find this thing consistently interesting and engaging. As I said, the instrumental palette is a lot wider than even the usual from this guy. Usually he can make incredibly immersive atmosphere just with the use of his synthesizers, but you do hear the rock instrumentation, you hear guitars, both acoustic and electric, you hear, like, xylophones and I think it's just one track, but might be more than that. There are piano interludes like Shifting Nature. There are appropriately sunny tracks like The Daylight Carrier and Into the Sun, though I prefer the former personally, got more of an adventurous up-tempo vibe, and the latter doesn't stand out as much. There are some more intense ambient trance tunes like Mountain King and Moving Lines, the former being our epic, uplifting, inspirational 14-minute album centerpiece, and the latter going a bit darker and sounding more like the usual from him. But there's also tracks like Joshua's Shop, which starts off sounding like something out of a Legend of Zelda soundtrack or something, but gets increasingly dense and post-rock-ish. Or Parallel Universe, which starts out pretty dark and spacey and mysterious, but also starts to build up guitars and acoustic drums. Almost military-esque acoustic drums in some moments. And not at any point does it not sound characteristic of Solar Fields. Everything fits neatly under his usual style. Epic crescendos, driving moments, and quiet ambient moments. Like, you got pure meditative ambient tracks like A Green Walk and the closer Siren Song of Glass. You got tracks like Wave Cascade and A Long-Tailed Bird Whispered, which offer little uplifting synth arpeggios. You got an intro like Burning View, which takes its time to really start up, but eventually really starts to get into gear. And everything is also neatly organized in a ridiculously tight, continuous mix. Tight enough that a lot of the time tracks can just pass by without you noticing. I mean, Ultimate Records' continuous mixes have always been excellent, especially when it comes to artists like Solarfields, who are most likely thinking about the mix directly when crafting the album, and making it all flow together perfectly seamlessly from start to finish. And if there is problems I have with the album, well, I guess none of these tracks really have melodies that are going to get stuck in my head easily. Well, to be fair, catchiness has never been Solarfield's strength. I think there's maybe one or two Solarfield's tracks that I would consider to be outstandingly catchy. There's Cocoon Moon, I guess there's The Stones Are Not Too Busy in Soul from Movement as well, though I think that's more just because of how many times I've listened to it over the years, and I think that's about it. But that's not what I come to Solarfields for in the first place. I mean, I come for the atmosphere, the sound design, the continuous mixing. Catchiness, I suppose, is something that is a bonus very occasionally. And all the things that I would want a Solarfields album to execute well is well executed. I mean, is this thing on the same level as Leaving Home or Movements or Blue Moon Station? That's a bit harder to say, but it basically delivers on everything I would want out of a new Solarfields album in 2018. Production is masterful, atmosphere is wonderful, it's different enough from his previous work to be unique and distinctive, but not so different that it doesn't sound like Solarfields anymore. Not much else to say. Only time will tell on how much this album sticks with me for the rest of the year and beyond, but I'm just very glad to hear this guy hasn't lost any of his original appeal and can still put on something interesting after all this time. And I definitely give this my recommendation. I'm overall feeling an 8.3 out of 10. But of course, it's just my opinion. You can feel free to disagree with it, but I'd like to hear your thoughts, so leave the comments in the comment thing down there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all for today. See you next time.